Morning, everybody. Really happy to have all of you here this morning. And I'm extremely excited because the guest that we have this morning is New York State Senator Kevin Thomas. He is the current sponsor of the New York State privacy legislation, and he has done a lot to further this initiative. And I'm really honored to have you here this morning. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Thank you for putting on such an awesome presentation for so many of your fans and friends on LinkedIn.
I appreciate the thank you. Hopefully, like this will help us to inform people on data privacy legislation, in particular, the data privacy bill for New York State. So, first off, obviously this is a very different situation that what we're typically used to seeing with COVID going on right now. What can you tell us a little bit about how you're doing with the COVID situation, how your district is doing?
So my district has been impacted a lot by COVID. I have a huge number of COVID positive cases. What we are trying to do is make sure that people are staying at home, that there's social distancing involved, that we are flattening the curve because it is working. And if you've watched Governor Cuomo's daily briefings, you know that it is true. The wave is coming down, and we're just doing everything that we possibly can to help those who are unemployed and making sure that people who cannot afford groceries have food at home to eat.
I think that's huge, and really happy to hear that the ways that you're supporting your district right now. I think this is also a really interesting time and a slightly scary time because as we're so busy taking care of just day-to-day needs and making sure that we're saving lives and people don't go hungry, that I think we run the risk of privacy legislation and privacy, data privacy in general, kind of falling by the wayside. So
Mm.
how have you seen COVID impact the data privacy legislation work that you're doing and the stance that you're taking?
So COVID has had an impact on the entire legislative process, and it has simply changed our approach, right? Um, Given that, you know, we have more time now. It gives us that opportunity to talk more to industry and to advocates such as yourself. At the end, we're going to have a stronger bill that everyone will have more time to weigh in on and to support going forward.
So that's definitely good to hear. Are there any specific examples of programs that you've seen come up or any kind of anything specific to privacy that you're watching right now that you're thinking about?
Yes, I mean, recently there's been a report that two big tech companies, Google and Apple, are getting into the COVID tracing operations, where they're trying to figure out who's been in contact with those infected by COVID. I want to know what exactly is happening here, what measures they are taking to secure our privacy, how all of this is going to work. Is this limited to just them contact tracing, or are there other commercial purposes for this?
Oh, some excellent questions from that. And do you have any next steps that you're thinking of pursuing just to learn that information and how how will that impact, I guess, some of the day-to-day work that you're thinking of for for privacy in New York?
So here's the thing, right? What's the whole reason behind me even sponsoring this piece of legislation? We all live in a fast moving and ever evolving tech world with few regulations. So when we hear that you have Google and Apple, right, that's the first thing that comes up. Whoa, they are actually working together. I mean, this is an industry which is driven by profit and market share, and it needs oversight from the government, right? Currently, the federal government is simply not interested in taking on this issue. And that is how I got involved, right? As a chair of consumer protection, I took this on last year because I wanted to fill that gap in regulation, which the industry has exploited for profit. And also, as a young legislator, I'm 35 years old, so I'll call myself young. I grew up in the tech world, and I'm like the best person to tackle this in the Senate because I understand what is going on here and seeing how we have this emergency crisis with COVID and how the tech world, they're coming together to create new tools to help the situation. It sounds good, but again, trust but verify, right? That's my motto here. I want to see exactly what they're doing and that everything is limited to what they say they're going to be doing.
I think that makes perfect sense. And it's I think that's part of like kind of the responsibilities, it seems like, as to why you took on this privacy legislation to begin with. Like, I love the explanation of that. So do you think that you've seen a lot of good traction with the bill so far?
Yes, I have. I mean, so there is a broad base of support for this across the spectrum, right? We've received postcards and support from New York residents and from people out of state, especially in California, where they have a right to privacy there. We've had tons of outreach from advocates such as yourself who support privacy legislation. We've had feedback from businesses who support privacy measures on how to improve our legislation. I don't think there are any groups who are openly anti-privacy. The real issue to gaining strong support is in the details of the legislation.
Okay, so that's good to hear, because I would think that, from a consumer standpoint or from a business standpoint, as more people are really becoming aware of the data that's being used on their phones and their daily lives, and especially during COVID right now, we're seeing articles every single day come out that talk about contact tracing, that talk about the data that can be used to track your movements, and how that can be used for not only, of course, for good things, which is, helping to stem the tide of COVID, but how, they can very quickly get out of hand. So if a consumer or a business wants to, like, if they want to help, if they want to give input, what is the best way for them to do that?
Um, well, they can send us their thoughts. That's the easiest way, right? There are lots of ways that people can influence the legislative process. They can write letters of support to the sponsor of the bill, me, and to members of the committee that consider the bill, to the entire legislative body. They can call elected officials' office like mine and talk to staff about why they support the legislation and what is a concern. All of that information is available. They can organize advocacy days to come up to Albany with a group and visit elected officials or staff in their offices, or set up a lobby in the legislative office building in Albany and catch staff and elected officials as they move between meetings. I mean, that's like the most aggressive way, but if you just call your elected official or call members of the committee that make a decision on voting it through the committee or not, I mean, that's a big step. And I would love for people to get involved in democracy this way, along with voting, every single year. But this is a right step to take.
Oh, and that's great to hear right now, especially again as consumers are, consumers, businesses, just people in general. Situations like this often make them feel like they want to take more action, and there's what can they do? And so these are really good first steps to hear. So I think that's the last question that I have for you is, so what's next? So obviously, this is an unprecedented event during COVID, but it looks like you have made great strides towards privacy legislation. You're asking the right questions. We know how people can get involved. What's next? What do we do next?
What we do next, we're going to pass this as law, and this is going to be the staple piece of legislation in the entire country. And we're going to protect a lot of people in this state and around the world with this.
That's amazing to hear, and a really good message to start everybody's day off with. So I want to thank everybody for joining. Thank you so much, Senator Thomas, for joining. Just again, an honor to have you on this morning, and really good conversation. So you guys said, as he pointed out, there are ways you can get involved in the post. I'll post some more information so you guys have the information needed. That if you want to call up, if you want to get involved, there'll be ways that you can definitely do this. We'd love to hear from you, both on my side and obviously as well from the senator's side. So thank you again, and everybody have a good morning.
All right. Thank you, Tiffany. You're the best.